A lot of people in the spiritual community are desperately trying to get that love and get that acceptance and get that universal feeling of non-separation. But when they do their research on how to get there, then, you know, what they are often being confronted with is the statement like, thoughts are illusions. Do not feed the ego. Um, how to stop the ego, how to dissolve the ego. And ultimately, it is true that unity and love can be, so to speak, attained through the dissolution of the ego. But, the ego is a thing that cannot be dissolved by fighting it. If you are rejecting the ego, then the ego is trying to survive even more. And then it's clinging to life even more. And then it's even more negative. And when we try to meditate and watch our thoughts, then what often happens because of that conditioning that we have got from spiritual teachers is that we sort of watch our minds in a very rejecting way. We are trying to, we are looking at the mind and at the same time kind of waiting for the mind to stop because we want to finally have peace. And I did the same thing, and what I found is that at a certain point there was no mind anymore, but still there was also no love. No love at all. It was just cold. So the dissolution of the ego isn't just, cannot just happen by rejecting the ego. You cannot just deny the ego. You can factually see and accept that the ego is an illusion. But if you stop being so philosophical about it and you really look at your life as it truly is, then you have to accept that this experience of being human consists of mind, body, and spirit. And that mind is the ego, and that mind is something that it just is just there. It's like the heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, your body's working, your cells are recovering and healing all the time. It's just part of the experience here. So instead of trying to get rid of your ego and trying to bring about a sense of love by suppressing the ego, watching it from a distance, we could instead learn to accept it. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you are separate from it and you're a separate observer trying to accept the ego, but what that means is you accept yourself for who you are as a person, as an individual. So you forgive yourself for what you have done in the past. You let go of things that happened to you in the past. You tell yourself that you can do this thing that you're trying to do. You tell yourself that you are okay as you are. And you start to actually sit down and be more kind to yourself, which means you don't try to fix your emotions or you try to heal your emotions, but instead you sit down and those emotions are there. They're a part of who you are. And you say, it is okay that I'm feeling this way. It's not dangerous. And then thoughts appear, and thoughts may say things like, I hate this life, or I don't like this the way it is right now. And instead of saying that's an illusion, that's exactly what the ego is doing, and I need to overcome it by just simply watching it and waiting on it until it dissolves, what you can do instead is when it says, I don't like this life, I don't like this situation, I would rather be somewhere else, you can say, it is okay, I understand you. It is valid. And you you treat yourself in a different way, in a loving way. And you will notice that there will be a change. In the beginning, it will just be a small change, but when you keep doing this, and when you keep being nice and kind to yourself, then you will see that the change will be a very drastic change. Um, what happens is that you, as the ego, will feel more loved and accepted and also more supported, and you also feel like you have more orientation in life because you can finally give yourself what you want. You're no longer confused and therefore waiting for a savior to come and save you, but instead you're asking yourself, what do I need? What do I lack? Uh, and then from this point, you can actually give yourself what you need, which could be acceptance or just a walk in nature, or you give yourself the present of listening to a guided meditation of a loving person that is emitting already the sense of love that you can just then absorb. Or you can just be kind to yourself, and in this kindness the ego can finally dissolve, not into cold emptiness, but this time into true love. And that's when you can finally sense that your beingness is already the love. You just have to stop fighting yourself, because that is exactly what, masters mean when they say that you shouldn't have internal conflict. When you are in conflict with yourself, then that is just the continuation of the ego, because it thrives on division and conflict. But when you finally, find peace in yourself and you make peace with yourself, so the ego finally learns to become more loving, or it learns that it is being loved finally, then it can truly dissolve. And this is a conscious act, because what is the ego actually? The ego is like a shadow. It is an unconscious process. As soon as the so-called ego is conscious, then it's no longer the ego, but it's the mind. And the mind is not a problematic thing. It's just the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is the ego. When the ego is being, when you are conscious of the ego, then it's no longer the ego, then it's the mind. And when you're conscious of your mind, then you are no longer driven by unconscious beliefs and unconscious habits and unconscious, but instead you see what's actually happening, and you see the way you talk to yourself, how hateful you are with yourself. And you can then finally see and ask yourself, do I really want to talk to myself in such a negative way? And you don't have to. You can simply choose not to do it. On a deeper level, of course, we can say who's the one that's choosing. But that's, it doesn't really require a chooser. Because, when your hand is on a hot plate, you don't have to choose to take it away. You become aware of where the pain comes from, and then you simply choose to do something positive instead. So there, it is just direct action out of sanity, because you're aware of the problem. It doesn't require a chooser. So you see, I'm the reason why I'm so unhappy, because I'm so, hateful with myself. And then once you see that, you simply choose not to be hateful with yourself. And that could mean that you consciously choose to listen to, healing, listen to guided meditations that have this healing effect. Or do things where you feel seen, or where you feel touched, or where just change the way the mind works, not in a way that you try to force your mind to work in a different way. That's very important to understand. That's not what I'm trying to say. You don't have to, when you're negative, just pretend that you're positive. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you're negative, that you could meet yourself where you are right now and say it's okay that you are here and we're going to do something about it, but I'm not going to treat you like someone that is supposed to give me, show me the progress. You're not. You don't treat yourself as if you have to show yourself that you are doing progress, but instead treat yourself like a friend. I see you where you are. I see that you feel mostly negative. I see that you are feeling depressed. I see that your habits are not so healthy. But you know what? I still love you and I'm still there for you. And we're going to find a way. We're not going to just, uh, you know, uh, lock in 100% and try to prove something to ourselves or someone else. But instead, we're going to find out what is the easiest thing you can do right now that could improve your mental health or your physical health. And then just from that, comes a sense of self love. So you don't have to push yourself and do something you really don't want to do, but instead make yourself feel seen by yourself. Treat yourself kindly where you are. Face yourself where you are. Meet yourself where you are. And be kind to yourself where you are. And then something can change, not out of force, but out of love, which is a much bigger power. So you feel more stable and more loved and more grounded in your being because then there is no conflict in you anymore. And then out of that state, you can actually let go of the mind. And what we'll say is just this sense of presence and love. And that love you will then start to radiate. That loving presence will then continue to look at the mind. The mind will not just be gone forever. There can be phases where the mind is quiet and there is just an ocean of bliss. But the mind will come back, and it's not a negative thing that you have to reject, but instead you have to also look at it as a part of your experience of what is. Because awakening has nothing to do with overcoming the mind and destroying the mind and getting rid of the mind. It simply means that there is a recognition: I am not just my mind. There is a mind, yes, it's a tool for me, and I can choose how I want to use it. Do I want the mind to be unconscious and therefore allow it to be very negative and allowing it to make me very reactive? Or do I want to be aware of the mind and therefore choose to be positive, choose to be kind to myself? So that is an enlightened mind. Because there is light that is shining on the mind. It's not an unconscious process anymore. And everybody, that's what I like to call the soul. I'm not saying that there's a permanent self or anything like that. But there is something in us, although for some people it seems to be very covered by the ego and by all the negativity. But there is something in you that wants to be happy, that wants to be peaceful, that wants to be loving, that wants to have a good time, that wants to feel in balance and in harmony. There is a part in you that wants to have that. And all these qualities, when we think of all these qualities like peace and love and harmony and goodness, then we have invented the word God for this. And that's why we say the soul comes from God, because there must be something greater in life. Because why would I want to invest all this energy to feel loved. There's a deeper intelligence in life that wants us to feel good, that wants us to continue to, that wants us to inspire other people and to be inspired by other people, to feel connected. It's not just doom and gloom. When you're in the ego, it is doom and gloom, but there is always this power underneath that says, actually, this is not what I want. What I actually want is I want to feel good. I want to be loved. I want to feel connected. That's what I like to call the soul. And then from that comes the power and will to actually say, you know what, I'm going to take care of my mental health and I'm going to take care of my body. And then when that feels safe, when that feels nourished, then it's absolutely safe to just let go and say, okay, the mind feels loved, the body feels loved, now I can just totally relax my body and relax my mind. And then there is just a pure perception of the absence of mind, in which there is normally just an ocean of bliss where you feel deeply connected to life. So the main message here in this video is basically just do not reject your mind. Become conscious of your mind and then start loving yourself. With yourself, I mean the psychological self that you are in this individual lifetime. It doesn't sound very non-dual of me to say that, but it's part of the experience, and I truly believe that there are a lot of people who are pushing away the fact that they are experiencing a human life and they just want to get rid of their egos, and that's basically an act of self-hate disguised as being spiritual. So cultivate that self-compassion.